It's Pride Month, everyone! Yes, I know, it's a little late, but I at least am doing something for it. I will actually have 2 videos available for Pride Month, this being one of them, but this time, we're tackling a very interesting game that is known to be one of the very first furry Steam games that many people played, while it also boasted to be not only inclusive, but also having NSFW content. What is this game exactly? Okay, yeah, we're talking about Amorous. Amorous is another dating sim visual novel that seems to be very well received by the community. If I'm correct, this was one of the first ones that people in the community could download from Steam, which has added to its reputation. Not only that, but the entire game is completely free, which is actually pretty cool. After all, if it's free, it's amazing, right? Okay, so I'm not gonna lie, this game was not exactly as amazing as I expected. Granted, this game is a free-to-play game with it not having any DLC, so I wasn't expecting something like Tsukihime, but even though that's the case, I still have to review this game to the best of my ability and completely without bias. So even though the creator known as JasonFX is not exactly the best person who has done pretty shitty things and been in downright devious situations and controversial moments, I still have to make sure I review it without bias and with fairness. There is a version of this game on itch.io, but I'm going to be tackling the Steam version instead, since this is where most people would be downloading the game. So with that being said, let's take a deep dive into this game and see what it has to offer to us furry players. Alright, so as per usual, we're gonna tackle the story first. You play as your own created character, yes, you can create your own persona or human depending on what you're feeling like, who is living at their family's home. They have no job, no money, and are not in any sort of training or education. They're a NEET, basically, in weeaboo terms. Your little stepbrother, Kobe, decides to head out to a club and pulls you along with him, where the game allows you to basically do whatever you want. What, you were expecting more? Nope, that's it, that's the story. So, the story is almost non-existent, only acting as a reason to why you're at Club Amorous. Speaking of which, though, let's talk about the club itself, since we're here. Club Amorous is generally your hub spot, where you'll go about clicking on characters that catch your eye. No, you can't click everyone, only the ones the game allows you to click on. You can, spot them by if they have actual movement, like full movement. Also, they'll glow red. Once you find your chosen character, you can talk to them and begin the character's route. To start the route, you have to say the right things and choose the correct responses, which aren't very difficult to spot. Once you're done, they'll give you their phone number, which means you're able to start the character's routes and, well, the like. Very simple and easy to understand. However, it's at this point where we get to a little problem. In my opinion, I don't really see these as routes, more so as mini-stories. Usually, a route locks you into a singular path, where it branches off into multiple endings. Thing is that there are no multiple paths. The only thing that can be considered a branching path is who you choose to get closer to at the beginning of the game. And even then, you can get multiple people's numbers and date every character at the same time if you wanted to. There's nothing stopping you from dating them all at once, and it doesn't even change the plot of the story or the other events with specific characters. Now, let's take a look at the characters in the game that we can romance and bone. There are 8 of them, and their stories are... well, their stories, alright? First, we have Lex, who is a non-binary individual whose biological gender is different depending on the player's gender. Apparently, their biological gender will always be the opposite of the player's. Huh, interesting tactic. They're a bit of a troublemaker, but at the same time are fairly caring and new to the whole romance thing. It's actually kinda cute. Not gonna lie. Then we have Dustin, a lion who is dealing with a shitty boyfriend who cheated on him and fucked in his own bed. He's dealing with the fact that he feels safe and, well, happy with this person, but unfortunately, this person is in a rut and continuously chooses to cheat on him and mess with him and then come right back to them when they have a falling out. Thing is, that's toxic. We all know that's toxic. It's fucking toxic. Yeah, so you basically replace him and help him move on. Next up, we've got Sky, who looks strikingly similar to a certain Digimon that the furry community will not shut the hell up about. In truth, it's just body paint due to her being a cosplayer. You find out it's because she feels like her actual fur is too boring, it being more of a white-gray. Personally, I like her grayish white fur more, to be honest. Jax is next, who is the bartender of the club. His story is, well, interesting at least, mostly due to the tension rising at the end. Apparently, he went through some shit with his first boyfriend, and thus he barely dates men, with you being his second. We have Seth next, who is an aspiring author. A couple of other things happen in terms of his confidence, but at the end of the day, you help him get his book to the top, then you bone afterwards. After that, we have Mercy, who is the game's only transgender character. She's the owner of her aunt's art studio, and apparently she rents out other studios to her friends. Jeez, woman, put these dicks away. PG-13 on YouTube. Fairly certain that she's fucking rich, too. She's a little bit self-conscious about her, male appendage, but fortunately, if you're doing the roots, you're accepting of her. You two bone afterwards. Zenith is next, and he's a bouncer for the club. He's a former police officer who had a bad run-in with a robber. His partner died because of it, and he blames himself. You help him get over it, and then, yes, you bone. And then we have Remy, who is the oldest out of the bunch, being in her mid-30s. She's a cooking instructor at a college who is seen as the club slut, to put it in blunt terms. You get with her, make her feel better about herself and her looks, and then, well, you know. And that's all the characters available to get with. Huh? Oh, hold on. Yeah? Uh-huh. Wait, what? No! Wait, they did what? Okay, so there's one more character that you can romance, and they're basically the easiest one in the game that you can romance. Doesn't take long at all, literally just takes around 5 minutes if you're reading all the dialogue. And this character is your stepbrother Kobe. Now, I may not be the sharpest tool in the shed, but I'm fairly certain that dating your brother is not something that boils over well in the consensus of incestuous relationships. Yes, they're not blood related, but it's still fucking weird in my opinion. Talk about pushing the envelope a little too much. So yeah, that's definitely not the greatest of situations. Yes, I still did the route because I'm a completionist, damn it. I'm reviewing this. I'm going for the long run. So, that's the game. There's nothing much to it. You choose a character, or all of them at once, and you just go ham. There are games that give less and that are still a good time, though. So maybe at least the game has things in each route, or rather story, that can make it a good time. Now, at first when I played this game before recording the footage, I'm not gonna lie, I don't think I enjoyed the experience too much. At first, I thought that the stories or routes with each character weren't as interesting and were way too short, with them not exactly being a lot of drama to entice the player, being myself. However, when I played the game a second time, I changed my mindset a little bit. So, as many people know, most visual novels are known for their stories and their characters. The artwork and the voices and animations, if there are any, come along with them in tandem, so that the full experience is one that is memorable to the player. However, you can have the most beautiful artwork and the greatest of music, but if your story isn't interesting, then almost 75% of the game is not enjoyable. The story given here, if looking at it from a certain point of view, can be seen as boring and uninteresting. There aren't any stakes, there aren't any really tense moments, and more realistic rather than fantasy. Yeah, I know, the furry game not being fantasy. Crazy, right? Your OC is not superpowered, they're not the individual who will change someone's life, they're merely a character who's just kinda along for the ride. That in itself is not bad at all. If anything, it gives a more realistic feel to the story, where you do have at least a hand in showing them the right direction or treating them correctly, but there's still people who'd live a fine life without you. They're capable and they're independent. That's not to say that you don't help them. Using Remy as an example, you showing her how Riptide really was and keeping him from hurting her is something that would happen in real life, if the situation called for it. Again, it's realistic drama. When going into the game knowing that and seeing it through that perspective, it allows the player to ground themselves and see the game for what it is. When I realized that, that's when I started to enjoy the characters like Sky, who I can relate to in many ways, being someone who doesn't have full confidence in how they look, and how their persona is liked more than the real them. Or like Seth, who was worried about their own creation being liked by a bigger individual, and what will happen if it is liked. I think that's one of the reasons why these characters are so enjoyed by players. Due to how grounded they are, lots of people can see themselves in the bachelors and bachelorettes, which gives a sense of connection. Many people have shitty breakups, lose friends, have issues with self-image, and even with their transitioning into what they want to be, and due to this, seeing these characters find love, peace, and happiness is a feeling that fills the player with a feeling of hope. It definitely filled me with hope, that's for sure. Though the routes are short and can be a bit simple, with almost no way to actually fail the routes when you're in them, it at least makes the player feel good when they finally see the final scene and those credits roll. However, even with those things in mind, there is still one thing that many players can agree on when releasing a game, even if it is free to play. Don't release your game when it's full of bugs. Remember when I said that in Lovely Overseer you can't save the game when there isn't a text box on the screen? Well, you can in this game, even when there's a choice to be made. One problem though, the game will soft lock you without any way to get out besides closing the game and opening it back up again, which renders that save file useless. So if your autosave does not work, that means that you gotta start all the way over. Whatever route you were doing before that and whatever scene you were finishing up, forget about it. Redo that shit over and get back to where you were. This instantly makes any choice that you make a game of Russian roulette, because if you make a wrong move or mess up, you'll have to go back and do the whole date over again to that point. This is not good game design, it's a glitch. Because if it wasn't a glitch, then why have the ability to save in the first place if it was a game design choice? That makes no sense. It's like if I gave someone a baseball bat, told them to hit the baseball, and when he does, I eject him from the game from doing something he wasn't supposed to do. See how that doesn't make any sense? Well, this is the same thing. Not only that, but there is also a reward from completing Remy's route, where you can see nude photos of her. If you're playing the NSFW version, of course. Click it and you're soft locked again. You can't pull out the phone again, you can't put it down, and you can't click anything at all. There should not be this many soft lock problems in a visual novel dating sim. I'm not sure when the game was last patched, but with any luck, maybe these issues will be tackled in a later date, so that players won't have to worry about being soft locked or pushed into redoing a whole section of the game that they just completed. Now, let's get into the style and the aesthetics of the game and what I really liked about the experience, shall we? The artwork of the game is really well done, with varied character designs that show off their character archetypes and their personalities. They're all different species, and they have their own type of style, which I can definitely appreciate. The animation for the NSFW scenes are also really good, with the only hiccup I have being that they're all meant for if you're either male or transgender, meaning that there'll be no lesbian action as far as the eyes can see. I mean, it's not the end of the world, but when you allow the player to create their own custom character, it'd be cool if all of their designs would be shown, rather than it being switched out. There are a few ways you could work around this, but they wouldn't exactly be appropriate for YouTube, so I'll just list them out on the screen. Alright, moving on before I get demonetized. The music is also pretty good too, with it having a kind of club-like feel to it, which goes along with the game's aesthetics. There are multiple tracks too, so you won't have to worry about hearing the same two songs over and over again. Some of the song choices for a couple of scenes though are a little weird, like the scene with Remy when you're in the aquarium and are confronted by Riptide again. A track that had a feeling of tension would have done this scene wonders, but it's not a total loss that it's not there. The inclusive nature of the game is also a sight to see, with there being characters of different sexual orientations, with different pronouns and genders, so there is bound to be a character that you can relate to in some sort of way. Hell, even your own character can be created however way you want, so you can put how you are or what you want to be into your own character for the game. Not to mention that a game of this length, though relatively short, is still long enough to be charged for. At least $10 a minimum is what this type of game would cost, and yet the game is completely free, with no in-game purchases or DLC to buy. Everything is here for the player, and it's a game that everyone can partake in, so it's crazy that people don't have to spend a dime for the complete experience. Amorous Amorous is a game that does deserve some attention for what it's giving to the player for the price it's at. However, it shouldn't be regarded as the best of its kind. There are multiple games on Steam that offer the same content and more, while also being much more in-depth and glitchless for the most part. The game does have problems, mostly in terms of the glitches and softlocks, as well as the exclusion of actual lesbian couples, but it's still a game that can be enjoyed. It just has growing pains it needs to get out of. Rating this game, I'm going to give this a 7.5 out of 10. With the game having a whole lot of potential for full-length stories, and maybe even a larger game with more drama and more events with huge stakes in terms of romance and love, I believe it's worth the play, especially if you enjoy more grounded stories and events. Besides, the game is completely free, so there's nothing wrong with playing the game. I did enjoy my time with it, and so were you guys, I'm sure. Also, hopefully Jason will be a better individual and is growing as a person as well, because, yeah. Well, at least we can say that the game being free is one way he's atoning. But, hopefully it doesn't stop there. Hi, Jason if you're watching this. Stay in school.